We want to make sure that our menu and our whole application is responsive. So let me switch over to Chrome and we'll take a look at our application. I'll go to the device emulator and let's set it up for an iPhone 6. So the heading looks good, but our menu shows up and it takes up more than half the width of the screen. So that's not good. What we're going to need to do is hide the menu and put a menu control, probably in the upper right corner. And that way, if the user wants to see the menu, they can click that button and the menu will show up and they can make their selection that way. But as it stands now, there just isn't any room for content on this screen. So let's take a look at how we can do this. Let's look in our PS Framework folder and we'll look at the PS Framework template. I'll make some space in here. We can see that we have our row and then we have our title here. And I'll add space right here so we can add our button. And then the next div has the controls. Actually, this is column small 6 and this is column small 6. So we need to put the menu button right inside here. So I'll paste some markup for that. So I added this div and we have an ngIf directive. This button is only going to show if our scope has a variable isMenuButtonVisible set to true. So this way we can get control over whether we want to show or hide the menu button. Also, when we click the button, there'll be a function on our scope called MenuButtonClicked. For classes, we're going to need to create this PS collapsed menu class, and we're going to want to pull it to the right. That'll make sure that the button shows up in the top right corner. As far as the button goes, we have a button class, and the classes that we're using are button for Bootstrap, and our own custom one called PS Nav Button, which we'll add soon. And there'll be an icon within the button, a Font Awesome icon called FA bars. And that's just the standard 3 horizontal bars that you see in menus all over the place. So let's start off by adding our CSS classes, PS Collapsed Menu and PS Nav Button. I'm in PS Framework.css and I'll scroll to the bottom and paste the new CSS rules. So our PS Collapsed menu, we need to display it as inline block. And that's what lets us put it next to the heading. Also, we'll give it a height of 100% of the row. For the nav button, we'll manually set a height and width. And these are just arbitrary values that I came up with that look good on all the small smartphone devices and tablets. We need to give it a margin. We'll give it a border of gray. We'll take off all the padding, set a font size of 26, and make the font color 777 for dark gray. So going back to the template, we have our CSS classes in place. We don't need to handle the click just yet. Let's just get it to show on the screen first. So we need to handle this ngIf. We need to set isMenuButtonVisible to true. So let's go to our framework controller and we'll add that variable to scope. And let's take a look at it. So we have our button right here. Of course, it doesn't do anything yet, and it shouldn't be showing up because the screen's wide enough to show the menu. But let's just take a look at it on, say, an iPhone 6. And it's showing up in the wrong place here. If we widen the viewport, we get a better look of how things are. The button is showing up in the right position, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to center this title when the button's showing. We can just leave the icon image and the title aligned to the left when the button is showing. So let's add the CSS for that now. We'll go into psframework.css, and we can see that up on top we have our PS logo area, and we're text aligning it to the center. Let's just comment this out and see if that fixes it for us. And that's good. We have our icon and title on the left side and the menu icon in the upper right side. Now I'll resize the viewport a little bit, and you'll see that as soon as that button hits the title, it jumps down to the next line, which isn't really what we want. We want to save that second line for any controls that we have. So one thing we can do is on the very small devices, we can change the font size of our title, or we can just remove the icon entirely. And I don't want to go too deeply into CSS, so let's just go ahead and do that. We'll remove the icon and change the font size. So one thing we're going to need to know is at what point does this break occur that the menu button hits the title. And it's right around here. It looks to be around, let's say 420. Or we can make it a little bit higher than that. Let's say 430. So we need to keep that number in mind so we can set up a media query appropriately. So I'll paste in the media query here. So I pasted in this code, but it's actually in the wrong place. We're going to be setting the PS icon as well as the PS logo title. So we want this to come after the rules for those items. So I'll delete it from there. And here we have our icon and our logo title and subtitle. And we can place the media query here. So we're doing a media query on the screen size, and it's going to max out at 430 pixels. So if it's 430 pixels or smaller, these rules will take effect. We're going to take our icon, and we're not even going to display it. We'll set display to none, and we'll change the font size on our logo title. And let's see how this looks. I'll set the device to iPhone 6 and refresh, and it's good. Our icon is gone, and the title text is a little smaller. If we look on it on a really small phone, say an iPhone 4, it also looks good there. And then again, I think this would look better with some kind of image up here. And in a production environment, I would probably get an image created that would replace this whole title for the small device sizes. But for now, this is good enough to work with. So our menu button is showing, and the button itself is styled, but there's still a few more things we need to get done. First of all, clicking the button doesn't do anything. And also, when we look at this on a large device, the button is still showing up. So we'll fix these things in the next video.